Aldous Huxley was an English writer and philosopher. He wrote nearly 50 books. And here's his quote about history. That men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history. Welcome to the History Slices podcast, a mother-son duo discussing awesome bits of history. We prove on every show that history is not boring, entertaining, yet stimulating. This is History Slices. And now, here's your hosts, Jacob and Rachel.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Jacob.
And Jacob, this is episode 13 of our podcast. Can you please remind me what we're talking about today?
Before we get into the main meat of the episode, I first want to give a quick shout out. People who've listened to our show for a while would know that we recently got a new, I don't know what you'd call
intro
them.
and outro.
Yeah, intro and outro. I just want to give a quick shout out to your imaging guy on Fiverr. I think his name is Keith, because you showed me this and I was like, oh, wow, my mind was blown. And I just wanted to give a quick thank you to him.
Yeah, he did a fabulous job.
We're not sponsored, but I wanted to plug him.
The really crummy thing is that his intro and outro sounds so professional, and we're still learning the whole sound editing here for us.
It's all good. Don't worry.
The rest of it,
that's part
there's
of the
a little
charm,
bit of a jolt.
I think.
Sure, yeah. We'll go with that, Jacob. That sounds good. So, listeners, we really appreciate you. We thank you for listening and playing along with us, and as we have our fun little history discussions. Mm-hmm. So
today, we're talking about my favorite artist. Maybe you've heard of him, Vincent van Gogh.
I have heard of Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah. I
don't know much about him, though.
That's fair.
I'll be very upfront about that.
He did Starry Night is one of his more famous ones.
Okay.
He's done a lot of self-portraits, stuff like that. Paintings of fields of flowers and haystacks. And
okay. The one factoid I think I know about Van Gogh that I associate with him is somehow he lost his ear.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what people know about him. So first of all, we're American. So in American English, his name is Van Gogh, and British English is Van Gogh.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't know which is the correct English version. Yeah. I don't know if it matters.
Maybe there's not a correct one.
So because we're American, I thought, well, I'll just go with Van Gogh.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
we'll stick with that.
But in case we have any British listeners tuning in, they're like, who's this? It's we're talking about Van Gogh. Anyways, so he was born March 30th, 1853.
1853, March 30th. That's your sister's birthday.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah.
Not quite the year, though.
Different century.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to make an attempt. A lot of these names are Dutch because he was Dutch. So some of the pronunciation is a little shaky, and I apologize for that. But he was born in a village named Goedzundert, I think is how you say it.
Okay, I'm going to let you go with that because I have no idea.
Which, of course, is in the Netherlands. His parents, he had a minister father. He actually had a minister grandfather as well. But as far as name, Theodorus van Gogh, his mother was an amateur artist named Anna Cornelia Carbentus, if I pronounced that right. Now, Vincent, from the get-go, he had some issues because his parents had a son before him, but he was unfortunately stillborn. And when Vincent came along, they reused the name Vincent for him as well, which I've heard has happened a couple times.
I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind that, but I have heard that too, that they, I don't want to say recycle names, but that they re-gift names. I don't know. Yeah, they reuse them.
It might have just been they liked the name or were attached to it. But,
could have been. We don't know the motivation.
Now, Anna, Vincent's mom, we don't know for sure, but a lot of her traits, that we know about lines up as someone who suffers from depression. We don't know if she actually did or not, but she wasn't very, I don't think she, well, I mean, I don't want to be overly speculative or anything, but in her mind, the dead Vincent was perfect and anyone else couldn't compare. Yeah. So that led to her comparing Vincent, the living Vincent, unfavorably to his brother.
Oh gosh, so he could never measure up in his mom's eyes.
And also it was at a time where they lived close to the graveyard or whatever. So Vincent would see his name on a gravestone every time they
Oh my gosh, that's a little unsettling.
Right, yeah, it would be it kind of, I think, well, I mean, I don't know if that messed him up, but it was one of those things that probably didn't do his mental health any favors.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Now, he wasn't an only kid, though. They had a couple more children after Vincent, 2 sons and 3 daughters.
Oh, cool. So they had quite a big family.
Yeah, yeah. However, Anna wasn't really particularly affectionate with any of them.
Aw.
But what she did do for them was, because he was an amateur artist, knows into that stuff, so he got them all sketchbooks. I was like, hey, go sketch, go do this scene I'm interested in.
That's interesting, because I'm starting to think about nature versus nurture already, and how just knowing that he ends up becoming a known artist, like how much of that was in him and how much of that was because he was introduced to a sketchbook early on. That's really interesting. Anyway, that was just a little side note.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an interesting point to make. I honestly don't know one way or the other, but I do know he really took to it. Like, he loves sketching bugs and plants and stuff like that. He take bugs back home to sketch, he was into that stuff. Now, money was a bit of a theme. It was like an issue with them. I don't know if it was
the lack of money.
Yeah, I don't know if it was no, they had too much. Yeah, it was a lack of money. I don't know if it was a time thing or a class thing or whatever. Regardless, him and his younger brother Theo were, who was one of the brothers I mentioned earlier.
Okay, was he immediately younger, or does it matter?
I don't know. I don't think it matters.
Didn't you say that his dad's name was Theo something? Theodorus?
Yeah.
So that's interesting, though, that the oldest son didn't get the father's name. Just another side note.
I know. It is interesting. I think
not to distract you too much.
They just reuse names, so they have less of a pool to pull from. Or
I just wonder, maybe Vincent was named after her dad or something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was
just curious that Theo is not the firstborn son. So anyway, okay, so his brother Theo.
Yeah, and Vincent himself, they got taken out of school early on because they needed some money. So they set up an apprenticeship with an art dealer uncle of theirs who worked for the firm Goupil and Chi.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation.
Goupil and Chi. Yeah, it sounds like something you would eat.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like a back cream or something.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're very professional and very established and all that. Anyways, so this is, at this point in his life, this is where he picked up a lot of his knowledge of art stuff, because it's like an art firm kind of a thing.
That makes sense.
He also learned some languages around this time, including German, English, and French.
Wow.
Because, of course, he was Dutch. So
Yeah. They do tend to learn a lot of languages over there, but to not be in school and be learning this, he must have just
been bright, yeah. Or it was just one of those things where people had better memories in the past.
I don't know about that. I don't think we've morphed that fast, but
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
So he completed said apprenticeship. That was all, well and done. So he was transferred to a London branch of the firm. He enjoyed his time in London. He liked the city a lot, and he liked the where he was staying a lot. Because what happened was he ended up in a boarding house owned by a widow by the name of Sarah Ursula Lawyer. She also had a daughter that was like a year younger than him. Like, he was 20, she was 19. Daughter's named Eugene, I think. I don't know.
Eugenia,
something like that.
Might be a female version of that name.
Yeah. Anyways, he helped with gardening and all her chores and stuff to kind of help earn his keep while he was there. As an aside, I should say, we have a lot of his letters, which is how we know a lot of the finer details of his story.
Oh, that's really helpful. So instead of having to speculate too much or wonder what happened, we can actually...
Yeah, just in case anyone's curious, because I realize it's how he was enjoyed the city. It's because he said so in his letter to Theo.
That's really... Oh, so are most of his letters to Theo?
Yeah, well, and I think some other family members, but I think a lot of them were... He was close with Theo.
Okay.
But we'll get more into that later.
Okay.
Theo's still back, in the Netherlands or whatever at this point. But despite all that, the next kind of important event of his life happened here, and we're not entirely sure what happened. Basically, he fell in love with one of the women. We don't know which one. It makes sense that he fell in love with a daughter because they're close in age, but some people have also speculated that he might have fallen in love with the widow, who was older, of course. Regardless, he proposed to the one he was in love with. They said no because they were already engaged to someone else, which again makes me think it's the daughter, but who knows. And he raised a bit of a fuss and got kicked out. He got barred from the boarding house.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That raised a bit of a fuss. I wonder if that was a euphemism for
No, it wasn't.
He just was it like something violent?
I don't think it was violent. I think he just had a
outburst,
an argument. We don't know the severity of the argument, but it was enough to get him banned, basically. It also didn't help that around this time, he also got fired from his job at the firm because what happened was, and I don't know why, he started telling people not to buy the artwork.
Oh, no.
Which is literally the opposite of his job.
Oh, no.
So I don't know what prompted that. I don't know if it was related or not.
I guess we could guess a few things like, okay, so maybe one, he was telling them to buy or not to buy it because he was in a bad mood and didn't want anybody to be happy. Two, he sincerely didn't like the art.
Which is possible.
Trying to steer them away from it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
We don't know the why for that,
but unfortunately
that
one's
he
a big
lost
question
his position.
mark. Yeah, but regardless, he was understandably fired.
Yes, oh gosh.
That's fair, I feel like.
So a couple crushing blows probably.
Yeah. After he lost kind of that whole debacle, he decided, well, if I can't be an artist, maybe I'll be a minister, because he was very religious and he was raised in a very religious household because, of course, his father was a minister, his grandfather was a minister.
It seemed a lot like, what you go back to what you know.
Yeah. It's like, well, I guess this is kind of the family business, kind of. So I'll, and he really wanted to, like, he read his Bible every day. He was very into that, and he wanted to kind of preach to the poor. So
he had a heart for other people if he wants to preach to the poor.
Yeah, he did. He wanted to spread the word. There's like a lawn. I don't know how one becomes a minister. I was doing research on it, and it was very confusing to me, which I don't know if that was probably more my problem than anything else.
It might not be the most straightforward career path. I don't know.
He had to take like a Latin-based exam, and he got accepted into like a minister school or whatever, like it was a whole thing.
A Latin-based exam for somebody who exited school early.
But who also taught himself a lot of Latin-based languages.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah.
So I don't know. Regardless, he got the job, or at least a job to preach to people. I don't know if he was like an official minister or not, but he was affiliated, and he volunteered. This is at like 1878 at this point. Around then, he volunteered to go to Brussels, which had a lot of coal mining towns. This was a bit unpopular at the time because there were some pretty poor, kind of slummy areas, and a lot of ministers and church people didn't want to have that image associated with their religion. Which I know seems kind of hypocritical, but I don't know all the details, so I don't want to like prejudge too much.
That's really interesting, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but of course, Vincent van Gogh, he wanted to preach to these people. These are like the type of, this is like my people, I want to preach to them. They sort of like, okay, all right. They gave him a house, the church did, but he gave it away to a local woman who couldn't work due to being ill. And was basically homeless at that point. So he's like, okay, you can have my house.
A very selfless act.
Yeah, right. He obviously he needed a place to stay, so he went to one of the sacks that was used for coal mining. No furniture, nothing like that. So he was all like had a blanket in the ground, basically. The local people, they loved him. They thought he was great.
I imagine. I mean, he basically made himself relatable. One of them.
Yeah. They actually nicknamed him the Christ of the coal mines because he kept preaching to them, and he was like this kind of this. I don't want to call him a bum, but you know what I mean. He was like,
yeah, that's really nice though that he brought happiness to other people and. Other people liked him. Yeah.
The church, however, fired him because they didn't like the image he was putting off. Oh, I know, right?
Another setback, and in a place where he seemed. I mean, I'm guessing a lot here, but it seems like he must have been kind of happy.
Well, I think he enjoyed it enough.
Yeah, and people liked him. And so, okay, another blow to his career.
Yeah, so he's like, okay, well, that didn't work out. So he decided to devote himself to painting because he loved to paint. He wrote to his brother, Theo, who I mentioned earlier. Theo's still at the art dealership, by the way. He never left. Like that's
where he started the apprenticeship. He's still there?
Yeah,
okay.
He's like, that's his job.
Okay. That makes sense because that's usually what apprenticeships are for.
Sure. So Vincent writes to Theo saying, hey, I want to become an artist, like a proper artist. Theo is like, heck yeah, man, go for it. Probably not exact words, but he was supportive. So they has to deal out, basically. Theo because Vincent was low on funds and unemployed. So what Theo would do is he'd send him 50 francs a month to kind of live on. In return, Vincent would send his paintings to Theo so he can sell them in a gallery. And as part of reimbursement for basically financing Vincent to live, Theo would be able to keep any of the profits made.
Oh, what a cool deal.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a win-win. Vincent gets to pay, Theo gets to support his brother and also make some dough.
Yeah, that sounds really like a real win-win, especially since Vincent doesn't seem to be the kind of materialistic person. He just wants to do...
he gave his house up to some random person.
So it's probably a perfect deal for him. He doesn't care about if it makes any money.
Now, I don't think a lot of Vincent's paintings sold. I don't know how much, like Theo kept his end of the bargain, kept putting money to Vincent. I don't know how much he got back, at least at first, but you know.
Sounds like he was a nice brother though. Really striking that deal and continuing it even if he's not making any money.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never know. Maybe like the winds would sift and some people are like, oh, I like this guy. I don't know. Buy his work. I don't know. Because I think that happens sometimes. Something gets popular suddenly. I don't know. Anyways, so Vincent, he did this several times in his life and it was not a good habit to get in, but he started to skip meals because he wanted to have more time to get painting supplies.
He wanted more time to get painting supplies?
Yeah, and to like work on his stuff. So he started skipping meals. And keep in mind, he was depressed. Like we know he had depression at this point, but he also, his mental issues kind of were like one of his personal demons. And it didn't help that he would lick his paintbrushes sometimes because he used lead paint. And they didn't know the danger of lead paint and how that messes with your head.
No.
Yeah.
So here he's already experiencing depression. Yeah. And he's literally ingesting lead.
Yeah, there's actually a quote by him which is basically like, if a voice in your head tells you can't paint, then paint and it'll go away. That's not an exact quote, but you know, like he worked through the depression. Like I don't want to be too overly speculative or anything, but I think he had a bit of a handle on that, but it was like the other mental issues that cropped up that kind of...
That does sound like something that somebody would say who feels like they have some control over their thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But then the lead on top of that, that's almost a more biological issue at that point, or physiological. How do you overcome something?
Oh, no. So
like poison?
He fell in love with another woman. He does this a lot. He just falls in love with people. And
passionate guy.
Yeah, I guess. It was his recently widowed cousin named Creva Stricker. I believe that's her name. And I know that's a little weird. Back in the 1800s, cousins weren't considered siblings, or they weren't considered like an incestuous thing because there was that level of removal, I guess.
Right,
but,
a little distance.
Edgar Allan Poe also like married his cousin, though there's debate as to how together were they and stuff. You know, one of those things that's unusual and kind of odd nowadays. And back then it was more common. Anyways,
so he fell in love with his cousin,
and he proposed to her like pretty quickly.
So he's impulsive, maybe too.
He's a bit impulsive, because this is the second time he's done this, where he falls in love with someone and instantly proposes. She left and moved back to Amsterdam with her parents because he was like, no. Vincent, in a move that's probably not okay, he followed her because he was like, I can convince her, you know, like give me a chance.
A little bit of stalking.
A little, yeah.
What do they call it? A restraining order. She needed a restraining order maybe against him.
So this is in a perfectly sane accent. This is what he did, because he was talking to her parents, being like, no, give me a chance. I can prove it. He got an open flame, like a lamp or whatever, a gas lamp. And he stuck his hand over the open fire. And he was like, I'll stop talking when the pain bothers me.
Way
like this
to prove
is
your
how
insanity.
this is how determined I am to take care of your
oh my
daughter.
Gosh, he was really well intentioned, but his method was...
They were horrified.
Yeah.
Like, no, get out. They blew out the flame. Get out of our house, you crazy person. That didn't work so much.
That's crushing.
Yeah, it was a bit like, this was a fairy tale maybe, but not
like,
in real life.
A Disney movie or something,
So he's like, okay, he let it go. And he moved to The Hague, which is a pretty famous city. Later on in history, it would become kind of an international like court justice thing.
Okay.
But right now it's in the story, not now, you know, it was the center of the Dutch art movement, which is why he went there.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm presuming thought, oh, hey, I want to be an artist. Here's the art place in my country.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Another woman, another one. He in The Hague, he met a prostitute by name of she was called CN, like as a certain nickname. Her full name was Klasina Maria Hornick.
Okay.
Hornick. Anyways, let me tell you everything wrong with CN.
Oh no. Well, besides the fact that she's a prostitute, that's already strike one.
Yeah, she was an expecting, alcoholic, single mother of a 4-year-old girl suffering from syphilis.
Oh gosh.
So a lot of things wrong right there. Naturally, Vincent was like, I gotta help this lady.
Yeah.
So he took her in, kind of like let her stay at his place. He fell in love with her. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Theo, Vincent's brother, I don't think he knew quite what was going on, but he offered, for reasons I'm going to get into in a bit, but Vincent basically wrote him saying, hey, I need some extra casts because he had extra mouths to feed. And Theo was like, yeah, okay. So he gave him some extra casts. Then Vincent from CN got not only syphilis, but also gonorrhea.
Oh, gosh.
Which he ended up hospitalized because of the pain.
Oh, my gosh.
This in turn caused Theo to find out about CN. And he's like, you gotta cut this off. You gotta stop this or else I'm gonna stop giving you money.
Wow.
Because he's clearly taking advantage of you, one. And two, it's not healthy for you to be in this relationship. Also, I think it was scandalous as well. But I don't know.
It's almost like he didn't have the common sense to know better. He couldn't tease it all out.
I forgot to mention, I mentioned this earlier, but models were kind of pricey at the time. Like
models for artwork?
For art, yeah. So CN modeled for Vincent a couple times.
Okay,
and
so
you
it wasn't
can find,
all one direction.
That's true, but you can find like some of Vincent's paintings of her.
Interesting. Yeah. So we know what she looks like. That's really interesting.
I don't know if like the standards of beauty are different then or not, but she's not the most attractive looking person.
That's interesting.
But that's just me being like subjective.
And I think standards of beauty, maybe they do change. I'm not sure. There might be some timeless standards, but and also just not to make her out to be the complete bad guy either in the situation, just because a woman in the late 1800s who doesn't have a means for somebody else to provide for her, she might have just been doing the best she could.
Though after Vincent left, I think she did go back to prostitution, but that also could just be she didn't have anywhere else to go. I know what you mean. It's that was a sad story all around.
That is. I think that really could be. I have no personal experience, obviously, with this, but I can't imagine any woman choosing to go into prostitution. Or maybe they do. Maybe the money's that good and that's just what they do. But back then, it doesn't seem. It seems like it would have been less of a choice and more of a last resort kind of thing.
I don't know enough to comment on that, but it's it's just it didn't work out.
Yeah, basically. It didn't work out, and him being him, it sounds like he wants to help the downtrodden and people who are helpless. And, need money. He's just willing to help.
So at this point, he left The Hague because he's like, okay, Theo, I hear you.
Good job,
I
Theo.
need money. He left The Hague and actually went to spend time with Theo. Theo, at this point, was in Paris, which was another kind of art center. Here's the thing, and this might have been one of the reasons why Vincent's paintings weren't selling as well in France, or in Paris, I should say. In the Netherlands, the prominent art style was, I don't know the name of it, but it was a bit more gloomy. It was a bit darker. It was like a lot of chiaroscuro, black, white, that kind of art. Like not to the level of Goya. I don't know I don't think it was to that level of dark, but it was still like pretty gloomy. In France, in Paris in particular, the art style was more impressionistic. It was more very colorful and a lot of light, more colors, a lot of like, kind of nature and stuff like that.
So here Vincent had been creating this art in the Netherlands, trying to sell it in Paris where there's a conflict between
there was a bit of a dissonance between what was popular. Theo had told Vincent, hey, there's this other art style that's kind of booming here. I'm sorry he didn't use that language, but whatever. And Vincent was intrigued. He's like, oh, okay. So when he visited Theo took him on kind of a tour of the art gallery and showed him all the artwork. Vincent did a 180. He loved it. He's like, this is beautiful. I can see why it's really popular. I want that to be my style. It being more of a moneymaker might have helped. I don't know if he cares about that though. Just given everything else that we learned about him. So he did that. Also, Theo introduced him to a group of of his friends that were that were artists themselves or into art. Some of them are known to history, but I wasn't researching them. I was more focused on Vincent. So, and so much like French dudes as well. So I probably would have gotten their names wrong anyways. A couple of them are, or at least one of them is relevant to the story. We'll get to him. Now, a lot of artists and friends who are artists, people who are in that trade would often model for themselves, because getting a professional model
for each other.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Getting a professional model was a bit expensive or cost some money.
Yeah.
And it'd be cheaper just be like, hey, can you stand here? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent has a lot of self-portraits of himself. He didn't have anyone to model for him, so he used a mirror.
I wonder if that was very common.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But what happened was he did find a model in a local postman by the name of Joseph Rowland, French guy. And he's just this random dude that was like, hey, you want a model for me, sir? And so there's some portraits of this dude Vincent made. They're and he painted every day, by the way. Like, he has so much of his work, even with a lot of it lost, we have a good number of it. Anyways, they just sit there and they have long conversations about stuff. I don't know if I'd call them friends necessarily, but they definitely tolerated each other. They were okay.
Can you imagine just being just a random Joe and having your portrait done by somebody who ends up being
famous?
So famous.
Yeah, though, of course, at that time, no one knew who he was.
Yeah.
In fact, well, I'm sure you know this. A lot of Vincent's fame is posthumous.
Mm-hmm. I pronounce that word posthumous.
Posthumous. And you know what I mean.
Yeah,
After he passed away, he got famous.
Okay.
Which sucks, but at the same time, he got famous.
It seems to happen a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Emily Dickinson was the same way.
Yeah.
They didn't know she wrote. And then when she passed, they found like a chest in a room full of just like poems and stuff. Like, oh, okay. So that's interesting. I was gonna say that's fun, but I don't know if it is. Okay,
it's notable.
Yeah. So a lot of Impressionists were they have a particular way of going about things. They only painted on very sunny, like nice looking days. They knew how to sell their artwork in a way that like kind of maximized profit, so they can live off like a painting a month or whatever. Wow. And spent the rest of the time just kind of chilling, waiting for like the right day or whatever.
Sounds like
the perfect light. Yeah. Basically, as like a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Vincent, his work ethic, not saying theirs was bad, but his was crazy. He painted every day, and it didn't matter the weather. If it was a gloomy, cloudy day, he'd paint that. If it was a windy day, he'd paint that.
That word passion comes to mind again. It just how passionate he was, because I think when people have that kind of motivation to do something daily, it's almost instinctive or impulsive that they just can't help but do it.
Yeah. Theo actually had to apologize for Vincent on his sake a couple times, because Vincent would get into arguments with other people in that circle of friends, with other Impressionists, because he thought that they weren't as passionate about it.
So he would offend the other.
Yeah, because here he is painting every day, and they're like, you know what I mean, and they're like painting like every once in a while, basically.
Oh gosh.
One of their friends, though, a man named Paul Gauguin, Gauguin. I don't know how you.
I'm sorry, Jacob. I don't know.
No, you don't know French names. Okay. He liked Vincent. He was a fan. He was like, yeah, you're cool, man. He's like, you need to chill off a bit. Hey, I try some of this stuff. And he gave him some absinthe, which is it's like a green colored drink. I don't entirely know what the contents are, but
interesting. I've never heard of absinthe.
Yeah, it makes you hallucinate and stuff.
Oh, great.
Yeah, right.
Just what he means. Licking the the lead paint and some hallucinogen.
I don't know. It's something that you hear about more in older stories and stuff. I don't know what that means. I don't know a lot about it, but I know like the movie Moulin Rouge from like a decade ago, 2 decades ago, had that as like a plot point. It's just, and that's set in like the 1910s or whatever.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that's just like, it was an old timey drug, basically.
Yeah. That's probably been replaced by something better
or worse, depending on how you define that. Yeah, no, I get you. But anyways, he introduced him to this, which didn't do wonders for his mental state. I doubt it was. I think it was from a place of like love, because he's like, hey, try this out, man. But it didn't really work so well.
And what was the guy's first name again?
Paul.
I'm
just going to call him Paul.
So Paul probably also partook of this particular
drug.
I'm
sure he did.
Yeah. Which might have skewed him into thinking it was okay.
So something that's kind of interesting, I learned this. I was surprised to learn this about Vincent van Gogh. He was interested in Japanese art. I don't know how he came across this or what
That does seem interesting, like two different worlds.
They're very different,
but unexpected.
Yeah, I don't know the genesis of this, but whatever reason, he was interested in kind of Japanese artwork, and he tried to dive more into it. Like he read a book or two on Buddhism or something, try to figure out what this stuff was about. And he told one of his not Paul, it was like a different guy. He told his art friends that like, hey, I want to move to Japan to paint there. They're like, okay, hold on. They're like, why don't you move to Arles, as like a town in France? I'm probably mispronouncing it, whatever. I'm going to say with every non-English name, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Why don't you move to Arles? I've heard that countryside there is like the Japanese countryside. I don't know if it is or not, but whatever. Vincent moved there.
Vincent believed him, and that was something he could do rather than go to Japan, which at that time, gosh, it seems like that would have been a very unique experience for anybody. Yeah. So he ended up moving to Arles.
Yeah, it's spelled, in case you're curious, Arles.
I'm not going to try to fix it because I honestly
no, I know you're not.
Clue.
I'm just saying for the sake of the listener.
I'm sure that there's some people who know how that's pronounced.
Yes, and I'm sorry for butchering I don't understand your country. It's a very beautiful country. I don't know how to say stuff. Anyways, when he moved there, the locals, they considered him a bit of a loner, a bit of a weirdo, because he didn't go out much and he didn't eat much. When he ate, it was like old bread and stuff, like he wasn't.
It just wasn't a priority. Eating just wasn't a priority.
It wasn't.
For him.
It was something he had to do, not because he, I think, enjoyed it. Or I don't know, maybe he enjoyed it, but it wasn't like his, he was more interested in painting. So here he is, pretty isolated in an unfamiliar town.
He falls in love again.
No, the absinthe combined with his own mental issues and him starting to eat paint, mental issues, I guess, really kind of made him a little loopy. Which had the interesting side effect of a lot of his paintings from this era of his life are very original. They moved a bit away from the impressionist, what was the main thing at the time. Yeah,
that seems like a logical consequence of the drugs and everything and the lead.
Theo was like, I'm concerned. So he sent
Theo, the superhero, steps in again.
Yeah, he sent Paul, who's their mutual friend. He's like the same guy gave him absinthe, but again, I don't think that was negatively intended. He sent Paul to basically babysit and watch over Theo and help him, and they got along well enough for the most part. However, Vincent, in a state of kind of madness, threatened Paul with a razor blade. He snapped out of it before anything happened, and he was horrified. He ran off.
Oh, no.
Paul left. He's like, I'm out of here, and they never talked again. So they had a bit of a falling out, unfortunately. Gosh. So following that incident, I don't know how long it was, probably not that long after, Vincent coughed his ear and gave it to a local prostitute. He's like, here, take care of this. It's important.
Oh my gosh. What in the world? Do you know anything more about that incident?
I don't know why he did that. I don't know if it was because he liked her. I don't know if it was just because he was crazy. I don't know.
Obviously crazy, but there must have been some reason in his mind he did that.
I'm sure in his head it made sense. Regardless, he was hospitalized because of all the blood loss and stuff.
Gosh.
Theo blamed himself because he was like, I should have been there. I should have helped him so it didn't get to this point. He's such a good brother. He is. He really is.
He's really looking out for him. He must have known that how much Vincent struggled with stuff.
Yeah, I think Theo also knew how talented Vincent was and didn't want that talent to go to waste or anything. Regardless, Theo visited Vincent in the hospital. The town's residents, they were like, what the heck? Because of this ear incident is very publicized. They worried that he was a threat to himself and others. Which, to be fair, he did threaten a guy with a razor blade and cut his ear off. So maybe they're onto something.
So you said it was publicized. Did it go in the newspapers?
Well, I don't know if it got in the newspapers, but the town knew about it. They were like,
Wouldn't it be weird to find a news article, though, back from the time we're talking about this guy, artist who cut his ear off?
Yeah, you're like, hey.
Well, whether it was word of mouth or otherwise, people knew.
Regardless, they signed a petition to get him and turned in an asylum.
Okay.
Which, fair enough. Asylums back then were pretty terrible, but at the same time, it's like,
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Now, Vincent, and we know this because he wrote to Theo about this, wrote about this. He said he was basically giving up on being an artist. He's like, it didn't work. It's not working.
Despair.
Yeah. Theo paid for him to have an extra room an asylum as an art studio.
Wow. What a gesture.
Because he knew that that was what made his brother happy.
Wow.
Get yourself a brother like Theo. Because he's a real
lifesaver, life preserver.
Yeah, he's a real nice guy.
Yeah. Definitely a solid support system.
Yeah. So a lot of Vince's paintings during his time in asylum, this is where he painted Starry Night, by the way.
Oh, no kidding.
From the window of his room.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. A lot of his paintings were of the asylum garden, a lot of plants, a lot of stuff like that, because he was interested. That his health started to improve. He was getting 3 meals a day. He was off absinthe,
Good.
So he was recovering. Yeah. Eventually he was declared well enough that he was like, okay, you can leave,
Yay.
So he went out of the asylum. Theo helped set him up in a new residence in a town of long French name, Avry-sur-Oise, something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm sure somebody somewhere is laughing at look, but it's okay.
I'm fine with you laughing at me. I can't pronounce non-English stuff. That's on me. Anyways, it was a house, a building shared with a doctor and his family. Yeah.
That was useful.
Yeah. Theo, I think, did that on purpose, just in case.
Yeah.
just in case you have another incident.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And they actually got along. There wasn't any crazy blowout or anything up until the end. July 27th, 1890. He's 37 years old. We don't know exactly what happened. There's actually some controversy as to the exact circumstances of this, which I'll talk about briefly, but he had a relapse. We don't know where he got the gun, but he found a loaded gun, walked down to a field. A couple hours later, he returned with a gunshot wound in his chest.
Oh my gosh.
Theo arrived and...
Can I interrupt? I'm
Sure.
sorry. When you say relapse, do you mean a relapse of depression, a relapse of drug use, or just...
I think it was just depression or something.
Slipped?
Yeah, he slipped.
Okay.
He survived long enough for Theo to arrive, and he was there when he passed. There's some controversy over if it was a suicide or because there's some evidence of he might have gone to an altercation and accidentally been shot, and he lied to help the other person, but we don't know is a thing. And that's kind of like a debate.
Yeah.
But regardless of how it happened, he was a very kind man, despite everything. And
he seems to have had an enormous heart for other people.
When Theo had his first kid, back when Vincent was still alive, Theo named his son after Vincent.
Oh.
And Vincent was so touched, he gave one of Vincent Jr., he gave him one of his paintings as a birthday gift.
Oh.
Joanna, who is the wife of Theo. In fact, Theo told Vincent that I'm getting married, and Vincent was worried that Theo would stop focusing on him or caring about him. But if anything, Joanna was equally supportive of Vincent.
So Vincent really recognized how important Theo was to him.
Yeah, the reason why I'm bringing Joanna up is because Theo died a little ways after Vincent, but after he passed away, Joanna went and gathered all the letters and paintings of Vincent's work that she could find, everything they had. She traveled across the country getting paintings. Unfortunately, a lot of them were thrown out or destroyed because people just wore him off as a crazy person.
Yeah. Wow.
Which, I mean, he kind of was.
Yeah.
At the end of it. But a lot of reasons why we know this guy exists, and a lot of reasons why he became famous after his death, is he presented all this stuff to people.
Wow.
And he got more of a name for himself afterwards.
That's fascinating.
And nowadays, he's considered one of the greatest artists of all time, or at least in the Western world, which he had no idea about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And all the personal struggles and everything that went into it. And he just kept painting. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
So yeah, I want to talk about this guy because, one, I thought it was very touching. I thought it was a very interesting story that I don't know how many people know about.
Yeah, really. I wonder how many people know more. The
ear thing's
baseline.
pretty
The ear
infamous.
thing is pretty infamous, but how many people really know the person behind all that?
Yeah, I don't know. He's one of my favorite artists, both because I really like his art, it looks really nice, but also because of the personality and character behind him.
He was. What do you think which of those two things makes you like him more, who he was or the art that he produced?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like, do I like Salvador Dali because of his surreal paintings, or do I like him because he's a Tinson hog and a bit of a nutter?
Yeah, I guess that's hard to separate sometimes. But I just know about you is that you like underdogs or people who are not quite fit the mold, whatever the mold is.
Yeah, I also like weird stuff too.
Yeah, that's true. Yes,
I saw Twin Peaks.
Outside of the norm. Yeah. So the fascinating story about Vincent van Gogh, that was really cool to hear.
Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think I'm just kind of thinking about what you've said and letting it sink in a little bit. So I don't know that I have any other questions.
That's fair. Well, I hope our audience enjoyed it. I
hope so too. I certainly did. I enjoyed learning more about it, and I feel richer because of it. So
well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have the history podcast, because I thought, hey, this stuff's interesting. I think it could be potentially relevant, and not everyone knows about it. So there you go. Bada bing, bada boom.
So what's happening next time?
Next time, it's another person. I know. Don't worry. The time after next won't be. It's I'm pretty reasonably sure you've heard of this guy.
Okay.
The world's most famous mime.
Marcel.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about him. I was reading up on him. I thought, he looks interesting.
Cool.
So we're going to do an episode on it.
That's excellent because like Van Gogh, the only thing I really know about Marcel is that he was a mime, and probably the mime, like the first famous mime maybe, and that he wears black and white. And that's what I know about Marcel. So we have a lot to learn next time.
Yeah, well, I'm eager to dive into it, but we'll do that next time.
Right on. Thank you, listeners.
Bye.
Confucius once said, "Study the past if you would define the future." You've been listening to the History Slices podcast with Jacob and Rachel. We hope you've gotten some useful information from the show. We hope we made you think, and we hope you were entertained. We know we had fun, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook at History Slices and on Instagram at History Slices Podcast. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show, and tell a friend about the show. That'll help us out too. One more quote before we go from Michael Crichton. If you don't know history, then you don't know anything. You are a leaf that doesn't know it's part of a tree. Till next time, this is History Slices, signing off.